everyone, it's Sammy from Sammy's Sweet Life, and I went full glam today because I had a video I really wanted to film today, and this is Sammy's Book Nook. It is just me talking about the books that I have read and mostly just listened to. I have not been doing a whole lot of actual reading, but I have been listening to a lot of books. I ended up signing up for Audible for like one of their free months, and then I ended up getting some sort of thing through them that got me like discounted months. I don't know how it worked. I got 3 like discounted months, and I also tried out quite a few of their books that were just as a member you got access to these books. So over the course of me getting these different free trials over the various months, I have read or listened to quite a few audiobooks, and I want to talk about them in this video. I am not sponsored by Audible or anything. If I have any sort of referral coupon or anything, I will link it down below. I will definitely try to find you guys something. I am an affiliate for Amazon, so I should be able to find some sort of free trial or option for you guys. But I have really enjoyed Audible. I decided to not stick with it because it ends up being $16 for one audiobook. I really wish they just had audiobook rentals where you paid like $5 a month and you could listen to however many audiobooks you wanted. I don't personally care to own any of them. I don't plan on listening to any of them over and over again. And if I did, I would just re-rent the same book. Like, it doesn't matter to me that I own them. So I feel like the $15 a month or $16 a month is a lot to just listen to one book. And I feel like I could blast through one book pretty fast usually. So I find that when there's any sort of discount deal, I totally go for that. But I have a problem paying $16 a month to get one book. So that's my whole spiel on Audible in general. When I'm going to be talking about these books, I'm going to try my best not to give any spoilers, but I'm not going to guarantee there's not going to be spoilers in this video. I'm really going to try to discuss the books in a general, like what the book is about and my feelings on the book, and not really give a whole lot of specific details about the book because I don't want to give you guys spoilers and ruin it for you guys. If it's a book I like, I want you guys to read it as well. So I'm going to really go in with it, trying not to give too much information about the books so that you can listen to them and enjoy them yourself. So the first book I listened to a long time ago, and I don't know where I got recommended this. I think in some sort of Peloton mom group. I live for their recommendations, and it was this book called Fierce Intimacy by Terrence Real. And it's just a psychologist, marital therapist, and he goes through a lot of information, and I really like this book. I listened to multiple parts of it multiple times, and it just really sunk in. In a relationship, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to be authentic, and you have to share a part of you that you don't share with other people, and it is really hard and unnerving when you think about it. I just really like the way he put a spin on how to approach relationship troubles and relationship problems, and I feel like it helped me like understand where I was coming from a lot better. Not to get into like too many personal background details, but I was raised by a single mom, so I didn't have like a good, healthy, stable relationship example growing up. It was just my mom and me, and I have dad issues. Like, I didn't really know my dad very much. I have a strained relationship with him. He was like in and out of my life in very small chunks. Like, it was very traumatic, like dealing with him. No sort of violence or anything like that, but it was just like abandonment issues and trust issues with that. So I do have a lot of like life trauma from all of that situation. So it is really hard for me to like open up and be trusting when that's like my example of what men are, like that. So it's really taken a lot for me to be in this relationship. We've been together almost 18 years, and we've, you know, had our ups and downs. Life is like, you know, a little bit of a roller coaster here and there, but overall, like, things are really good. And this book just helped me like understand my part of the relationship a lot better. So I would totally recommend this book to anybody if you are in a relationship, or if you're going to be in a relationship at any point, or if you just want a relationship with yourself. It's such a good book. It's just one of my favorites, one of the top ones on my list. I really liked this one, so I would definitely recommend it. He's got a really cute sense of humor in the book, and so it wasn't all like really dry humdrum stuff. It was deep, and it was lighthearted, and it was comical sometimes, and it really got down to real stuff a lot of the time. So I totally recommend it. One of the other ones I read was The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and this one I did not like. I liked the idea behind it, but it was told in like a story form where it was like this teacher and a bunch of their students, and they were jetting off to these like fabulous places, and in the dialogue with the people, it was explaining why the 5 a.m. habit is so important. And you guys know, like, I've been trying to wake up at 5 a.m. It's life-changing for me. I did not like this book at all. I found all of the dialogue to be like overly overly done, like not realistic at all. This is not how humans would be talking to each other. I would have much rather it been more like the Atomic Habits book where they just like line it out, like these are the benefits, these are the steps, this is what you need to do. I did not like the way that it was just drawn out. First of all, when it was dialogue and when they're trying to make it into a story, it really muddles the actual messages and the actual benefits because you have all this extra dialogue to try to make it flow like a story, and it was just not good. So I definitely recommend they try to basically throw that whole book in the trash and start over with why 5 a.m. is so good, why it's good to be in the 5 a.m. club, and not make it into like story time. It's just, it did not work for me at all. I did finish the whole thing, but every time I was listening to it, it was like slogging through this very slow message. I love waking up before the kids so I can get my stuff done. And I feel like when I do that, my day starts off in a really great way, and it really just leads to a better day and a better outlook and a better mindset for me. But that book was not it. I just did not like it at all. Now, this next book I read is called Healthy as F. I'm not gonna say it, and I can't pronounce her first name. And this one was really cute. It really was just like nothing I didn't know already. It was talking about healthy habits, you know, cut back on drinking, make sure you eat good, exercise, all the same things, but it was told in a really cute way. But of course, by the title, it's Healthy as F. It has a lot of curse words in it. If you do not like sailor mouth, potty mouth, this book is not for you. I personally am a potty mouth. I try not to be so much on this channel because I want to keep it, you know, family friendly. I know a lot of you guys have kids like me, so I really try to tone that part down and always bleep it out with like animal sounds. I know some of you guys really like when I put in like a sheep baaing or a rooster making noise or something every time I slip one in, but yeah, this book is totally like F-bomb city, and I really like it. I really liked her personality was shining through in the book, and I liked the book in general, but like I didn't learn anything that I didn't already know. It's like the same old thing, you know, healthy mindset, eat well, move your body, those kind of things, basic things, but I really liked the way that it was presented, and I really liked her personality, so I would recommend it if you like the potty mouth talk. It's a lot of F-bombs and things, but yeah, it's good. I like that one a lot. I read one that was recommended by the Club Moxie group. You guys know I love my Moxie Life. I love my Moxie Life planners. I love the Club Moxie. I'm in their group coaching program, and one of the books they recommended a while back, they actually interviewed Casey Davis. This book is called How to Keep House While Drowning, and it is a really good book. It's something, if you have little kids, it really lets you know that the overwhelm that you feel, like when you have little kids, you can't keep up with everything, you know, like my house is sticky, you know, kid sticky all the time. It really lets you know that you're not alone. And I feel like this book went way, I don't know, way darker and deeper than I expected it to go. She had a lot of problems dealing with things postpartum. So it really, like, if you are basically like postpartum depression or clinically depressed, it gives you like the very basic steps to just get things flowing and the bare minimum things you can do. It really gave you a lot of tools. So if you're at that level where like everyday life is a struggle, this book is going to be so helpful. I would totally recommend it, but I feel like I'm a little like two steps up from that. I'm still overwhelmed with all the cleaning and daily tasks and just the monotony of everyday life with little kids. It can be a lot to deal with, and it's a lot of mental load stuff too. So there were some things in the book that were still helpful for me and applicable to me, but a lot of it was like, you know, if you have a pile of dishes that are a week old, this is how you get out of this hole. And I didn't find that particularly useful because I'm not in that state where it's like, we run the dishwasher every day, and partially I would say 90% of that is my husband. My husband runs those dishes, and I have a really, really helpful partner who takes care of things like for instance, this last week, I was in complete survival mode. I did not do one single load of clothes, but my husband made sure those clothes were washed and put away. He did better at putting the clothes away than I do. I am so bad about like getting the loads started. I'll hang up the workout clothes, I'll stick the clothes in the dryer, and then poof, I forget about them. Like they sit in the dryer for like 3 days sometimes because I just forget. Once they're in the dryer, I'm like, oh, I'm done with the clothes. I'm like, I can sit back and relax, and then I forget to fold them and put them away. And sometimes I'm really bad about that. And he, like, as soon as the dryer beeped, he was like folding them, putting them away. He was a rock star all week long, taking care of everything, let me sleep late a couple of days when I was just struggle bus because I couldn't sleep because of the coughing and congestion. He's a rock star. So I think partially I don't have as many of the issues is because I have a rock star for a partner, and I feel like a lot of times he is better at stuff than I am. But a lot of times it's true. He's really just on top of things when I suck at certain things, especially when I'm feeling bad. He really just picks up the slack. All that to say, this book was only half applicable to me. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I feel like her husband may have traveled, you know, for work and stuff. So she was alone with the little kids quite a bit of the time. So I feel like that also would lead to more problems. I'm really fortunate that he's home most of the time, working, of course, but still home. Stella was kind of a pandemic baby. She was like 4 months old when the pandemic stuff happened and everything shut down. So I didn't have the same experience with her as I did with my first, where we got to go out and have a social group. We had moved to a new place, knew very, very few people, like basically our neighbors, and that was it. And we really just were us. So I feel like if I had read this book at that point in time when I had a brand new baby, no social connections basically, I think the book would have had a much more impactful thing for me. But because, you know, my kids are a little tiny bit older, I kind of have most of my stuff together, not all of it, but most of my stuff together. I found that that book wasn't entirely geared towards people like me who have mostly things together, have a really supportive spouse, but I found that it's a really good book, and I really loved the way she outlined everything. I did get some tools out of it, and so I would really recommend it for anybody who has little kids, and basically like any mom, like anybody who has a mental load of being the caretaker for children. It's a really good book. All that to say, I would totally recommend that one. Another book that I read was Ishmael, and I ended up finding this, seeing multiple people recommend this book in just like various podcasts. They're like, what's your favorite book? My favorite book is this book. So I ended up reading it, and it was really, really good. I found that parts of it were a little bit slow because it is mostly like dialogue. It's a gorilla and a human being, and they're talking, and it's really, really interesting, like where they're going with everything. I'm not going to give any kind of spoilers away aside from it's a gorilla and a human talking, but I really, really enjoyed the story, and I found myself wanting to listen to it more and more, and I would totally recommend it too. It's a good one, and I could totally see why people put it on their favorites list. It's a really good one. And then I read one that I didn't know was an actual book. So I follow the Busy Toddler on Instagram, and I followed her for years, like basically since Olivia was born. I really, really love her Instagram. I have done quite a few little activities with the girls, well, especially with Olivia, but with Stella too. Just like different sensory bin and activities because of Busy Toddler. I follow her on Instagram. I get ideas from her. We've made bubble foam multiple times because of her, and I really, really like her. And she has a book. It's called The Busy Toddler's Guide to Actual Parenting, and it's by Susie Allison, and I just know her by The Busy Toddler because that's her Instagram name. But I found the book really, really cute, and it was, again, like, I found one thing about it that I did not like, and I found it kind of a little bit preachy in this way. It's a mom where she's like one of those moms that has like 2 under 2 and 3 under 3 and 4 under 4 or 4 under 5, you know, that kind of thing. And I find this is like a genre of mom pretentiousness that drives me effing bonkers when people are like, I have 3 under 3, so I'm like the best mom in the entire effing world. And I just hate that pretentiousness of it. I have a story that goes along with this, I'll say in a minute, but she had that tone to it, like, you know, I'm momming, I've got 3 under 4 or whatever it was, and you know, momming is hard if you have this situation. And I was like, no, mommy is hard no matter how many children you have, even if you only have 1 child, even if your children are 17 years apart, which happens to some people. It doesn't matter what mom you are, what kind of mom, adoptive mom, foster mom, whatever. If you identify as a mom in any capacity, no matter how many children you have, no matter what age they are, it's hard AF. And I hate when moms like, and she didn't outright say like, you know, I'm so better than all these moms because I handled 3 under 3, that kind of thing. But she had that sense of like saying it in a way that definitely rubbed me the wrong way, and it led me to think of the story I'll tell you in a minute. But I just hate that thing. And I have multiple people that do have like 2 under 2 and 2 under 3 friends of mine, and they're not like that at all. But I have had one instance where I was saying something about, oh, Stella's such a banshee, and one of the moms is like, yeah, imagine having 2 toddlers. And I was like, well, I have a big kid that I also have to take care of too. Like, it's not a competition. Like, people make it into this competition thing. It drives me batty because it's like, we're all in this together. It's all hard, and I don't know why we need to like try to make our momming like harder, martyry. I don't know. I don't like it. But I do have one story that goes along with this I took Livy to gymnastics, and at the time she was my only. And there was one mom who was effing insane. Like, her kids were always screaming. She was not paying attention to her children, and she had 3 of them. And it was just like the most hot mess express situation I've ever seen any mom ever. Like, just period, ever. But she like thought she was like the coolest mom ever because she had 3 under 3. And it's like, some people maybe shouldn't have 3 under 3 if they can't handle 3 under 3. You know what I'm saying? Like, give another year to yourself so you don't become like this insane mom whose kids are running around wild. And 2 of the kids were in the same gymnastics class as Olivia, and neither kid was like doing any of the stuff. Like, the teacher was basically having to corral these 2 kids. And the mom was just sitting back, not doing anything, not even paying attention to the baby kid that was with her, and just like chatting, and just a hot mess express, like totally hot mess express. And I'm like, if that's the example of 3 under 3, then nobody should aspire to this, you know, because I'm like, I feel sorry for you that you put yourself in this situation, and like life seems so hard for you. And I'm so glad I just have 1. Like, you're setting the example of why I didn't have 2 kids back to back. Like, my kids are 4.5 years apart, intentionally 3+ years apart. That's when we wanted to start trying for our 2nd kid, but like all the house fire lawsuit stuff happened, and we ended up with 4.5 year age gap, which I have loved. Some things are hard when I'm like juggling elementary school with a baby. You know, that part was a little bit hard, but we have like 0 sibling rivalry. I was able to have my time with both kids. I feel like I gave both kids really adequate attention. I just felt so good about my decision, and I'm not saying it's for everybody. I see the benefits of having them closer in age so they can do activities closer in age, and like Stella doesn't get to go to all the big kids stuff because she's too little, things like that. So there are downsides to everything. We went from having potty trained kids to back to diapers, and that was rough. You know, things like that. But overall, I've really enjoyed it. But going back to this 3 under 3 mom, this was like her badge of honor. Like, I have 3 under 3, so much so it was on her effing license plate. Her license plate said 3 under 3. And I was like, why do you think that's like something that everybody should aspire to? And why are you saying it like it's the goal when it shouldn't be the goal? It's just like raising your kids should be the goal. It shouldn't be like what age gap is best and like having as many as fast as humanly possible. And I'm not a proponent of that at all. Clearly my kids are far apart in age. Of all the examples of motherhood, you're the last example for me. It really cemented in my head like how wild some moms are, where they think like they're the best, and they're like the one where I see and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's like the worst example of motherhood that I've seen, aside from like, you know, stuff you see on SVU and things like that. But I'm like, man, like that is not the example I think people should look up to. Like, that's the example of what not to do. And like, if I was using that as an example, my kids would not have been 3 under 3 for sure. If I was even considering it, that would have totally turned me off of that completely. But yeah, it's that kind of thing. All the time she would mention like, oh, I have my kids 3 under 4, whatever age what it was. It was mentioned a few times in the book, like how hard it was juggling multiple kids, going to the grocery store, that kind of thing. It always brought me back to that gymnastics story where I was like, this one mom was 3 under 3 and she thought she was hot, and everybody else was like, we see that train wreck coming from a mile away, and it's not a good example. Anyway, the book itself was really good, but it did have that little tiny bit of preachiness to it that I just didn't resonate with. And in the same breath, I'm saying we shouldn't judge each other, and I'm judging that one mom only because she was so pretentious and like full of herself. Then I feel like I have a right to judge her a little bit. So I apologize for being a little bit judgy. And to be completely fair, most of the moms I know that have multiple kids pretty close to back are rocking it, are awesome, they're doing great. And it was just this one particular 3 under 3 mom where I'm just like, oh my gosh, so bad. All right, next book, Sphere by Michael Crichton. I absolutely love any book from him. I read the Jurassic Park books from him, love them. I still love all the Jurassic movies, all the Jurassic World movies. I just love him. But I read Sphere, and I've never read the actual book. I've seen the movie, and I really liked the movie growing up. It was just like a little bit creepy and eerie, and really liked it. But the book is so much better than the movie, like a billion times better than the movie. So I would highly recommend it. It had more things in the book than in the movie. And it was just, I guess, hard to like recreate too much of it. And you really get more of the whole story, the whole picture in the book. And I loved it, just absolutely loved it. So I would highly, highly recommend that one. And then I read one, I really liked the book. If you had asked me lots of years ago, my favorite book was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I probably totally butchered his name, but I read one of his. It was one of the free Audible ones, Notes from Underground, and it's just like rambling, ranting stuff from this one guy who's a little bit off, and it was really good. I really, really liked it. And then somebody I follow on YouTube, I found this with like talking about all of my parent issues and past traumas. I found this lady called Terry Cole. She calls herself the Boundary Boss. She's on YouTube. She does lots of videos about like healing your wounds from childhood and setting up healthy boundaries as an adult, and I really, really like her. And she has a book called Boundary Boss, so I finally got it and read it on Audible, and it is her reading the book, which is really awesome. I highly, highly recommend it if you are anybody who needs help setting boundaries. She really walks you through step by step, like really practical boundaries. I go the opposite way. I go from having zero boundaries to overdoing it and having too many boundaries. I've really tried to find that happy medium with like boundaries that aren't too overly controlling, that I can live with, but it keeps other people in check a little bit. So I really highly recommend checking her out if you need any sort of boundary help. And it wasn't just like family, it was family, friends, coworkers. It applied in all aspects of just getting your boundaries together, figuring out how best to express yourself. And there's a lot of help with how to tell people no too, because as a chronic people pleaser, it is really hard for me to say no for certain things. And I found it really helpful to have that guide in the book where she's just walking you through like, it's healthy to say no, you know, it's actually not authentic to yourself and not helpful to yourself to be piling all these things on and then just like explode at people, you know, that's not right. So she really put it in perspective, and that's what I'm used to, like bottling it all up until I explode. You know, it's normal and healthy to have all these boundaries. So I really, really like that book and recommend it. And then I read Prince Harry's book. It just had come out and it's called Spare, and it's called Spare because he always felt like he was the spare prince, you know, he was the extra. So Prince William was the number one. He was always the extra one, just in case something happened to William. So I feel like his book, he read it, which was really cool. I thought it wouldn't be read by him, but it was actually read by him. I found that it was really, 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 really long. It was a 15-hour audiobook, and I do speed things up. I put them on like 1.5 to 2 times speed, and I do that for YouTube videos too, by the way. And if you ever think I'm talking too fast, you can also slow YouTube videos down. So you can make it a little bit slower. I do get people saying I talk too fast. So you can always change the speed, but I always listen to books fast, and I couldn't listen to him as fast because he has a British accent. So it was a little bit harder for me to speed that one up quite so much. So I listened to it on like 1.25 speed, which is still a little bit faster, but it just slogged on, and I felt like he went into way too much detail and way too much information for quite a few of the areas. I'm not going to talk about any of his life story. You can listen to the book if you want to know anything specific. He did talk a lot about his mother, and I felt like that part was like the most authentic feeling part in the book, and I'm really glad I read it because it was a really good book. But honestly, I feel like he could have cut the book in half and it still would have been fine. Maybe even like cut it down to like 1/3 of the book and it still would have been fine. It just went so much detail on so many things that nobody really cared about. And also, like, I'm gonna go into one of the parts of the book, so spoiler alert, he talks about his peen quite a bit, and it's like, nobody wants to know about your peen. Like, please stop mentioning it. Please stop talking about it. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to know. This is information that you could have just kept to yourself and not shared with the world. And so that part was interesting. I'm like, why are you telling me this? I need brain bleach. I don't want to think about your peen, but he went there, guys. So if you want to hear about his peen, this is the book for you. So that's all I'm going to say about it. That's the only spoiler alert, but I really find it interesting. I don't know how much I believe about the royals that he talks about. I don't know how much I believe about the Meghan Markle stuff that he talks about. I know there are 2 sides to every story, and I'm sure all the royal stuff is a wild way to live. So I feel like I had a little more sympathy for both of them based on this. I definitely still feel like some people are little drama queens about certain things. So I found that part not as helpful as the other parts of the book. And yeah, I just really wish I didn't know anything about his parts. But other than that, I really like the book. So I would recommend it, even though you will learn about his parts. Just warning you, just saying. It's actually a book that I got on the Kindle. It is Everything That Remains, and it's by the Minimalists. I have one of their books on audiobook as well, but I haven't finished that one, and I'm about halfway through with Everything That Remains. Joshua Fields Milburn is a really good writer, and I really liked reading this book. And again, because it's a reading book, it's a lot slower for me than actually just being able to listen, because I can listen to it faster, and I can also listen while I'm doing other things. So if I'm doing laundry or chores or anything, I can totally turn on the audiobook and chug through lots more books than actually physically reading. I have to have a quietish environment, and I have to have some spare time to just sit and do nothing but read. So yeah, audiobooks are totally my jam. Physical books, not so much these days with 2 little kids, but I'm making my way through it. I'm about halfway through, and I totally recommend any of their stuff. Check out their podcast. I absolutely love The Minimalists. So entertaining and also just really practical. I'm not a minimalist by any means, like clearly not a minimalist, but I really like a lot of their mindset stuff. Okay, and the last book, we're finally at the end. The last book I have read is Fair Play by Eve Rodsky, and I read some of the reviews on this before I had downloaded it. I have heard about this multiple different places, but some of the reviews were not very nice, and they were really saying like, she's a scorekeeper, I'd hate to be her husband, all these different things that were like really rude. And I was going into the book with really low expectations, like, okay, maybe she's just like a crazy woman that like expects her husband to be a housemaid, that kind of thing. And I did not get that vibe from her at all. Like basically the whole premise is the women carry all of the mental load for the children, the children's activities, the food, the chores, the cleaning, the maintenance of all of the house things. And her whole idea is you have this deck of cards, and like literal deck of cards, where each thing is on a piece of card. It's like, okay, dinners for the family is on one card. And then like cleaning toilets is on one card, like things like that. Emptying the trash day, that's on a card. And you shuffle the deck and you split the cards between you and your spouse. And I didn't like that at all. And she's like, this isn't to score keep. And I was like, how do you not score keep? If you're literally handing each other a deck of cards, like actual physical cards, how do you not score keep? I feel like that would be the ultimate scorekeeping. It's like, you're responsible for this and only this, and you know, I would totally scorekeep. Like if I was doing my deck of cards and my husband was falling short on his deck of cards, I would totally feel like scorekeeping under that circumstance. But I find that if your husband does 0 or your spouse does 0, it could be helpful to like split it up like that and be like, okay, because I'm handling 100% of everything, you have these things that are yours, you handle them, do what you will. And I could see where it would be helpful to have a physical deck of cards to do it, but I found that part to be like, it wouldn't work for me. I feel like I would totally scorekeep and it would make me go crazy. Me not doing my part or him not doing his part, it would totally make it scorekeeping and not fun. I will say, like I said earlier in this, my husband does a lot of stuff, but I do carry the mental load stuff. I make the appointments. I handle all the scheduling stuff, but I'm a planner by nature, so it doesn't bother me too much. But there are times when I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, mental load, I'm overwhelmed. He's really good about seeing what I need, and that's not to say it's always been like this. You know, we've grown as people and I've been able to communicate a lot better and he's been able to communicate a lot better. We've come up with a system that mostly works for us. I find that a lot of the mental load stuff still does fall on me, and most of the time I'm cool with it, but like last week it's like total breakdown in everything and he really had to pick up the slack. And I find that if we had like a deck of cards, it would have not worked either, you know, like things happen. And I just found the deck of cards thing a whole turnoff thing for me, but I really did like the book. It ended up being mostly like coming from a place where the woman does 100% of everything and the man does nothing. Like he comes home and sits on the couch with a beer. Like that's the kind of situation. And I feel like that's probably very accurate for quite a few people, and it just isn't in our case. We've learned what works for us over the years, and I did get some valuable information from it as well, but I find that the book is really geared towards somebody who the woman does everything and the man does nothing. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people, and I find since I'm the stay-at-home mom, a lot of it falls on me just because he works outside the home. And if we were both working, I think we'd have to divide out the home work a lot more evenly, because I would have an outside job too. But since I'm home, I feel like it makes more sense that I do handle most of the stuff, but he still does a lot. Like way more than he probably should. Don't tell him that. Anyway, I recommend that book, especially if you're in a situation where your partner is not pulling their fair share of everything. But yeah, that's all the book talk I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed your time at Sammy's Book Nook. I really didn't talk about the books in too much detail. I did give one spoiler alert with the Prince Harry book, but otherwise I feel like I really was good about just giving you guys an overview so you guys can decide for yourself if you want to check out any of the books I talked about. I'll try to list the titles down below if I remember. If I'm being a good editor, I will do that for you guys. And yeah, I would love to know, because I'm still in the market for more books, I would love to know what books you guys have on your lists or what books you really liked lately. I'm always in the market for more books, so let me know in the comments down below what your favorite book you've read recently is or what book is on your to be read list. So like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.